Well, I saw this video on Twitter the other night, and I just knew I had to watch it on stream because it really does just speak to the level of dishonesty in the right. Now, this segment, to be fair, I think the average conservative or Joe Rogan or Matt Walsh fan who sees what I'm about to show you will probably find some cognitively dissonant way to justify it and say, oh, no, he's not actually a lying piece of shit. Well, this or that, right? But I do think it's important for us on the left to look at it, to reassure ourselves that, like, yeah, no, our opponents are evil liars who are wrong about everything. It is very, very good to remind ourselves we are literally right and they are wrong about everything. So we should be a little bit reassured in remembering that, I think. You know, I want you guys to just feel a little bit of what's the word for it? Vindication when you see the clip I'm about to show you. Anyway, Matt Walsh just recently went on Joe Rogan. No doubt expecting to be able to spread the lies that he normally does completely, unchallenged, as Joe Rogan tends to do. The thing is, it seems that Spotify has forced Joe Rogan to engage in the bare minimum of fact-checking whenever one of his guests makes a broad claim, because Spotify has multiple times threatened to cancel their deal with Joe Rogan, to deplatform his show. They've taken down episodes of his show before, and they're basically saying, listen, you can say what you want, and you can do what you want, and you can platform who you want, but you have to fact-check them. You have to actually fact-check them. You can't just take what they say, nod along, and put it out there on the internet. And Matt Walsh was apparently not aware of this change that Joe Rogan has been forced to make because, let's just see what happened.
Allow places to prescribe testosterone to young girls when they're as young as 15 years old without consent from the parents at all.
Yeah.
There's not another thing that you can get at 15 that's going to change your life like that.
Yeah. And that might.
There absolutely is, by the way. There are plenty of surgeries and medical procedures that young people at the age of fucking 12 can get that will change their lives that we're completely fine with and aren't stigmatized. This is literally just people not using their brain. Like, literally, think for a minute. Do we really actually bar life-changing procedures from young people? From like underage people? We give everything from like removing people's we literally give spinal tap procedures to minors if we decide that it's going to be best for them. You can literally 10-year-olds can give bone marrow transplants. Chat, do you know what a bone marrow transplant is? If a child decides to, they can give consent to give bone marrow to a dying loved one. Bone marrow transplant. Let's look at what that is. A bone marrow transplant is a procedure that infuses healthy blood-forming stem cells into your body to replace bone marrow that's not producing enough healthy blood cells. A bone marrow transplant is also called a stem cell transplant. You need a bone marrow transplant if your bone marrow stops working, well, obviously, yeah, but what's it like to get it? I'm just going to describe what they do. They take a needle, a big fucking steel needle, and they put it into like your thigh, and then there's a drill on the end of the needle, and that drill drills into your bone to get into the thicket, like into your like femurs usually that they go for, into your spine. Those areas have a lot of bone marrow. Like they go into the side of your femur or something, they drill into that shit, and they start extracting the bone marrow out of it. It hurts so bad that, like, they do put you under, but even then, if they don't, like, for younger people, they can't even put you under, I think. So if they can't put you under because of health complications or worries, you literally have to just, like, tough it out through excruciating pain. Like, it is described as some of the worst pain a human can experience to get a bone marrow transplant or to give bone marrow. And there are cases where children, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds have said, yeah, I've got a grandparent that's dying. My bone marrow is compatible. I'll give my bone marrow. and that kid has like undergone some extreme pain because of that. And we don't really like demonize that. We don't really demonize that in our society because it's not like we don't have this pretext of like being gay or queer or LGBT or gender nonconforming or whatever it may be is weird. Our society only views the procedures that minors could undertake to transition as bad or dangerous because we see it as weird. It is not because it's irreversible or because we're worried or concerned. We have shit tons of procedures that are irreversible and life-changing. That fucking there are literally children out there who have to get dialysis every day, who are miserable getting dialysis, and yet they do every day because it's what saves their life and they would die without it. Like, these are, like, when you really think about it, like, what dialysis is, if you describe dialysis the way conservatives describe bottom surgery, it would literally be described as torture. It is just a double standard for anything that is pro-LGBT that our society has yet to let go of. We do not have this same standard for care on children that we have for when it comes to like whether or not we really believe they could be trans and they should get the treatment they want. We don't have that same level of carefulness for like anything else. We're like twice as careful for that as we are with like, well, should a kid really get their gallbladder removed, or should this kid really have their appendix removed? Like, oh, their tonsils. Like, they will absolutely cut your tonsils out without a moment's notice. If you go to the doctor and you're like, I've got tonsillitis, I'd like to have my tonsils removed, instead of just getting not a moment's notice, but like, if you insist, like, no, I don't want to get penicillin or amoxicillin for my tonsillitis, I want to get my tonsils removed, they will remove your tonsils. They'll do it. You'll have to pay if you're American, but they'll do it. And those are your tonsils gone. Those are like, aren't those like a type of lymph node in the back of your mouth? Like, that's a part of your body gone. And you can just do that when you're like 10, when you get tonsillitis if it's bad. Sometimes the doctors will insist that you get it because next time you get it, you could have it even worse. And it could result in like your throat like getting swelled up. I've had tonsillitis before. It's a nightmare. Yeah, these really are, it's just a double standard. It's just a double standard.
That might change because they are, you know.
Anyway, I'm sorry for that long rant. It's unrelated to what this clip is about, but let's watch.
They are changing the ideas of consent that we've all agreed to. We all understand. We all understand that children cannot consent, even if they say yes to something, not really consenting because they don't understand what they're doing. They don't have.
Minder Matt Walsh says he breaks his children's consent all the time.
Don't have a fully formed brain, you know.
Especially taking hormones that aren't natural to your body at 15 years old.
And you're sterilizing the kid. They're not going to be able to have kids in the future.
This is untrue, by the way. Hormone blockers do not sterilize anybody, and they're reversible.
And you could say all you want. Well, we told them that, and they were okay with it. At 15, they were okay with it. I mean, you know, I had started having kids when I was 26. If you had asked me when I was 24, I would have said, no, I don't want any kids. You know, because even when I was 24, I couldn't imagine having a kid. I couldn't imagine wanting a kid. Now I have 4 kids. I can't imagine not having kids. But those are the changes that happen. Even in your mid-20s, people go through changes.
Okay. The idea that somebody wanting kids is equitable or equatable to the idea of somebody like understanding their gender identity is laughable. Okay? People understand their sexuality and gender identity, that they may be gay or straight, when they are literally toddlers. Like, most trans people knew that they were trans to some degree since they were a toddler. Most cis people have known they're cis or known that they're like the gender they're supposed to be since they were a toddler. I mean, I've never once had like that feeling of like, oh, am I in the wrong body? That's never happened. I've generally been pretty damn confident in like, yeah, I'm a guy and I like it since I was like a baby, right? As long as I can remember. I don't remember a time where I've been like, I don't think I'm supposed to be a guy. And that same level of sureness that maybe they're not supposed to be a guy or not supposed to be a girl seems to be prevalent in trans youth as well. This is not the same as a change in opinion of, do I want to have kids or not? More so a change in opinion of, like, a change of am I gay or not, which tends to be something that someone figures out pretty young. You know, I knew I liked girls when I was in literally preschool. I literally have memories of seeing girls in preschool and knowing that, like, when I was in preschool, that I liked girls. Like, that was just a realization that I knew. Would my mom saying that I was straight to me have been pushing heterosexuality on me? If I told my mom I liked a girl at school, if she'd said, you're straight, you like girls, would that be pushing heterosexuality on me? Of course not, from the perspective of Matt Walsh. And it wouldn't really be pushing anything on me at all, really. What these people see as pushing something on youth is just parents that are accepting of what their kids are and do not push their kids to be something other than what their kids are telling them they are.
Like that. So the idea that a 15-year-old can just resign from childbearing and that's supposed to be a meaningful choice, like they know what they're doing, it's total madness.
So that's the first clip there. The idea that a 15-year-old girl should be able to resign from childbearing is madness. You know, that's a good Matt Walsh quote from Joe Rogan. But here's the quote that I really want to feature. Here's the fact-checking clip from the Joe Rogan episode with Matt Walsh that just, you know, this one made him break out in a cold sweat.
How many people have had this done?
Depends on what. I don't think we have exact numbers, but if we're talking about the drugs, millions.
You're talking about hormone blockers.
Yeah.
Millions of kids have been on hormone blockers? Really?
I'm sure someone's going to fact check me on that, but my guess is that we're into the millions now at this point. Yeah, that would be my guess. I can say,
I love the deep sigh, like, damn, we're in trouble. That's so dark.
For double mastectomies, I read a report recently that there were over 1,000 done between 2016 and 2019. And when you compare that to how many were done between, 2008 and 2015.
I like how it doesn't specify if those 1,000 mastectomies were done for trans-affirming reasons or for other reasons, because the titty chopper procedure, that's what we'll call it. We'll use some conservative talking points here. We'll call it the titty chopper because I cannot say that word. It is too hard. I can't do it. I don't know why. My mouth won't make those noise. The titty chopper, the titty lobber, that happens for a lot of reasons unrelated to gender affirming surgeries, like breast cancer and shit like that. There's probably a lot of other reasons, but like cancer is a pretty good one. And that's pretty common. Like breast cancer happens in people who are not like 18 plus and they have to get a mastectomy. So how many of those were for other reasons? Probably a lot more than you think when you find out what's about to get fact checked. This is a really good clip.
It's a massive increase. And over 1,000 girls had gender affirming double mastectomies in that time frame.
And when you say girls, you're talking about prepubescent?
Right. Minors. And that's just up until 2019. And then we know that there's been.
By the way, these people could not make an argument based on any studies or facts as to how giving a 15-year-old quote unquote girl a mastectomy for like gender affirming reasons to save his life, because we're talking about a trans guy in this scenario, like to save his life, how that is any different or how that is somehow wrong in comparison to like giving a young 15-year-old like cis girl a mastectomy for breast cancer to save her life. Like both cases, the same procedure is being done to save a life. In one case, it would be fine in their minds because, cancer is like obviously bad. That's the treatment for cancer, for breast cancer. In the other case, they would try to come up with some pseudoscientific, jumbled argument as to how there isn't enough data to back up the idea that gender affirming surgeries are, like actually good for you, like trans youth. Like they'll try to claim there isn't that data out there. There is that data out there. That data is overwhelmingly agreed upon. That is the consensus of the scientific community. This whole like, this puritanical view on kids transitioning or minors transitioning is not held by the scientific community. Like this weird, like overwhelming, like caution that you see, or what they call caution, is literally just conservatives trying to say, oh, well, we don't know yet, when we absolutely do know. We know. The data is there, the studies have been done, the proof is there. Trans people are happier when they're allowed to transition. When they are not allowed to, their lives are threatened. The data shows it. Their suicide rates show it. Their depression rates show it. Their suicidal ideation rates show it. There's just no arguing it anymore. We tried conversion therapy for decades. Conversion therapy has been tried for decades. It does not work. It just results in further ingraining of the downsides of the mental state caused by the bigotry. Transitioning saves lives. It's just that simple.
Been this exponential increase with all this stuff year over year. So it's a lot. It's too many. Having this happen to one kid is way too many. It's a lot more than one.
Yeah. Look, if you're an adult and you want to do that and you understand who you are and what you are and this is how you feel you should progress, you're an adult. This is a free country. You should be able to do whatever you want.
This is an argument from somebody who does not understand the science, by the way. Joe Rogan does not believe that trans people are valid because he has not done even the slightest bit of research on this. Joe Rogan does not do research. Joe Rogan's knowledge is an accumulation of what he has learned from his podcast. Joe Rogan doesn't go home after a podcast and go I talked to this Matt Walsh guy and he was talking about trans stuff. Maybe I should go look at the data. What does the APA, the American Psychological Association, say about trans people? Let's look at let's go ahead and take a look at the data on that. Let's see. If Joe Rogan went and looked at some reputable academic and medical institutions to find out what they believe about sex and gender and whether or not trans people are valid and their gender identity is backed up by some sociological evidence and that there's data and medical evidence to back up that transitioning is best, all that stuff. Let's see how easy that would be to find. It appears the APA, the AMA, so it's the American Psychological Association and the American Medical Association all agree that gender and sex are different things, and that the best way to treat gender dysphoria is through validation of that gender identity and of that person being able to express their gender freely. The American Psychoanalytic Society, we could literally go down the fucking list. It's not a secret that there is a massive consensus on this. You could literally just Google, what is the scientific consensus on trans? Let's look that up. What is the scientific consensus on trans people? Let's just Google that and see what happens. Literally the top one is the Scientific American. Stop using phony science to justify transphobia. The largest study involving transgender people is providing... Here, this is from Nature. The largest study involving transgender people is providing long-sought insights about their health. Attacks on trans people are also attacks on science itself by CNN. Between the Gender Lines, The Science of Transgender People by Harvard EDU. You could literally just Google what is the consensus on trans people and find it. This is not a man who cares about scientific rigor or the truth, okay? This is a guy who just kind of believes the bullshit his buddies on his podcast tells him, and this is the guy who literally gets all of his opinions from his buddies that he drinks beer with every Friday night. And they talk about, he finds out, because they watch, their right-wing news sources and, just tell that, him what they believe, and that's where he gets all their opinions from. You know that, one guy... That's what Joe Rogan is. The guy who literally gets all of his opinions from his friends who get all of their opinions from Fox News.
But when you're talking about doing that to children, the fact that so many people are on board and so many people are angry, if you have people are going to be angry at us that we're having these conversations.
Yeah, they will be. And I also, I actually think that this should.
The instant, I love how you just know. The instant the screen lights up, you just know what's about to happen. You just know what's about to happen. So Matt Walsh said he'd guessed that millions of kids are taking hormone blockers. Let's see what the number is.
Shouldn't be happening to
That's a very small number, if that's right.
It says over the last 5 years, there were at least 4,780 adolescents who started puberty blockers and had a prior gender dysphoria diagnosis.
It says it's kind of undercounted, but
that would be a big undercounting.
Less than 1,000 people a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would guess, hundreds of thousands at this, but I could be wrong.
Millions sound.
So, like, he pulls something out of his ass that just sounds nice, really hoping he's not going to get called out on it. He says, I'm sure I'll get fact check on this, but I'd guess it's like, he even tries to preempt it, like, okay, just in case I get called out on this, I'm going to try to, soften the blow just in case. But hopefully I get to run with that presumption of millions of kids are taking hormone blockers, which for the record, by the way, even if that was true, all the other, that wouldn't change any of the other arguments or data that back up that hormone blockers are a valid, treatment. That would be fine. But, even then, he expected a lie that he told to just slide by to his audience. And it got called out. Now, just that one lie got called out. I want you to imagine, how many other lies do you think these people tell that just never get, fact-checked? It happens all the time. Just because that got fact-checked doesn't mean this guy isn't constantly lying. That's just what they fucking caught. We know as, lefties that these guys are just full of lies, but I make these videos with the presumption that at least a few centrists or possibly even people that don't agree with my videos are going to watch it, and I don't want to make it with the entire, I don't want to make my videos entirely with the vibe that any fan of Matt Walsh is this irredeemable piece of shit idiot who is, forever scarred by the fact they fell for the lies of Matt Walsh. Yeah, it's definitely pretty embarrassing, but if you realize, oh shit, this guy's just been feeding me lies this whole time, let me go do some research and find out what the truth is and change your opinions to more align with reality, that makes you a good, reasonable person. Good, reasonable people change their opinions when they realize they've been lied to. If you're a Matt Walsh fan, I'm sorry, you've been lied to. Not just an overrepresentation of a number that maybe, in your opinion, at the end of the day doesn't make much of a difference, but he lied about that. He's lying about pretty much everything else, too. And if you want to see to what extent, you should check out my content. Subscribe, hit that bell icon to turn on notifications down below and check out the rest of my content. I got a lot of stuff that literally just breaks down the things that Matt Walsh says and believes with studies, facts, data, big brain knowledge stuff. We big studies and data and stats and numbers and words that are so long and scientific you've probably never even heard them before. That kind of stuff, like endocrinologist. How many of you have heard that word before? If you're a Matt Walsh fan, you probably haven't heard it before, because they don't like to name the type of scientists that study these fields. Anyway, with all that said, hopefully you enjoyed, and keep your brains open. Keep your brains turned on. Don't turn them off. Don't let these demagogues lie to you.